Arc 3.0 is officially out. Well, kind of. In typical Bungie fashion, they dropped info on all the subclass updates, reworks, and more coming in Season 18 on a random-ass Wednesday with zero heads up. Of course, I was at the gym, feeling massive amounts of FOMO, but we're here now going over everything we know about Arc 3.0. Arc is going to be getting an intrinsic buff, unlike Void and Solar 3.0, called Amplified. You're not going to need any aspects or fragments to apply this, which is very unique. Being amplified will increase movement speed and handling, and also make you more agile to set up longer slides and combos. By default, you will become amplified by getting arc kills with either weapons or abilities. After sprinting while amplified, you gain a higher boost in speed and what Bungie calls a sizable damage resistance in PvE. And then this also further increases the effects of sliding. The goal with this resistance and speed boost, as Bungie claimed, is to be able to be used as a gap closing tool. Debuff wise, Arc 3.0 is getting blinding, which we already kind of had, and something called Jolt. Blinding is going to be the exact same. Enemies will not be able to see and will not fire if they're blind. And then Jolt, on the other hand, is extremely similar to Volatile in Void 3.0. Enemies who are jolted will send out chain lightning to nearby enemies periodically, kind of similar to controlled demolition. And then lastly, all classes are going to get the ability to benefit from ionic traces, which are currently only on Middle Tree Arc Warlock. It still sounds like only Warlocks will be able to spawn these though. Super good changes all around. Now let's look at what is new for the Hunters. We still are going to have Arc Staff, which is expected, not like this was ever going to go away, but we are now getting a new super called Gathering Storm. Hunters are going to leap into the air and spear throw their staff into the ground. This is going to deal massive damage and jolt enemies that are nearby initially, and then a secondary strike of lightning will deal damage and leave a large AoE damage zone. Think Vortex Nova Bomb, but probably much better for ad clear. Hunters are going to be keeping Combination Blow, which is huge, and Bungie did say that this will allow Hunters to chain dodges into melees and then melees into dodges, so I think that something similar to Combat Flow will return as well. And then we also still have Disorienting Blow to blind enemies. Hunter arc aspects are as follows. First up, we have Flow State. Defeating a jolted opponent causes you to become amplified. When amplified, the Hunter's dodge will recharge faster and make you more resistant to damage, and you have quicker reload times. Next up is Tempest Strike. This allows the Hunter to perform a sliding melee similar to what we have on Middle Tree that launches an arc wave along the ground, dealing significant damage and jolting enemies in its path. And then lastly, we have Lethal Current. After dodging, the Hunter's melee lunge range is increased, and their next melee attack jolts the target and creates a damaging lightning aftershock. When used with Arc Staff, after dodging, the Hunter's next staff light attack hits twice. In addition, hitting a jolted enemy with a melee attack will blind them. It kind of sounds like Flow State and Lethal Current are going to be the way to go off the bat, unless that sliding melee gets a huge buff. And then lastly, Hunters will finally have Blink back on the Arc subclass, and Blink should be getting an overall tune-up. I'm a huge fan of the Hunter changes. Now let's move on to what Warlocks are getting. On Warlock, we are keeping Chaos Reach and Storm Trance, which again is pretty expected. Storm Trance will combine Landfall and the Blinking ability now, which is great. And then Warlocks will also still have the Ball Lightning melee from Middle Tree and the Chain Lightning melee as well. However, being amplified is also going to increase the effectiveness overall of these melees. The Warlock arc aspects are as follows. First up, we have Arc Soul. The Warlock casts a rift to create an Arc Soul that will assist the player in battle. Allies who pass through the rift will also earn the Arc Soul, and new to this, the rift will now charge faster when allies are nearby. While amplified, any Arc Soul you have or gain is going to be supercharged, increasing its rate of fire. Up next is brand new, which is Lightning Surge. The Warlock activates their melee ability while sliding to transform into a ball of lightning and teleport forward, then calling down a field of lightning bolts at the exit point that jolts targets. And then lastly, we have Electrostatic Mind. Arc ability kills and kills on arc debuffed enemies create ionic traces. When you collect any ionic trace, you then become amplified. I think these aspects are pretty solid overall. Arc Soul will be nothing special unless you have a Rift-based build, or unless they get a pretty big boost in damage. Lightning Surge sounds insanely fun, but I don't know how useful this is going to be. Stoked to try this out and really hoping it mops ads. And then lastly, I think diving into Arc Traces with Electrostatic Mind is a fantastic idea. Arc Traces are kind of insane, but they don't spawn too often currently on mid-tree, so generating these for your team will help the ability regen a ton. Still seems like only Warlock will be able to make these though. And then lastly, we have Titan. Once again, Fist of Havoc and T-Crash are back as expected. Fist of Havoc has gotten a slight tune to average out its AoE on each slam and will now have AoE traces on the ground when air slamming. Titans are getting a brand new thruster ability though. By double tapping a button, Titans will now burst in the same direction as their throttle direction, but at an increased speed, which literally sounds like it will be Twilight Garrison, but just for Arc. Titans are also going to keep Seismic Strike and Ballistic Slam melees, but Titans are also getting a new melee called Thunder Clap. Titans will charge up Arc Energy that can either be released in a quick jab form or as a One Punch Man style blast. This fully charged melee is going to be pretty strong, according to Bungie. Titans are getting 3 aspects as well. First up is Touch of Thunder, which will buff all the arc grenades. I'll let you read these for yourself, but the one that sticks out most to me are storm grenades that create a roaming thundercloud that moves and tracks enemies, similar to the Silence and Squall, firing lightning bolts at the ground underneath of it. Next up is Juggernaut. While sprinting and with full class ability energy, Titans now gain frontal shields that block incoming damage. When amplified, the shield is going to be stronger, and then once this shield is depleted by taking damage, the player's class ability energy is going to be gone. And then finally, we have Knockout. Melee kills trigger health regeneration and make the Titan amplified. Critically wounding an enemy or breaking their shield increases melee range and damage for a brief period. Titan's base melee becomes arc empowered while Knockout is active. These aspects sound kind of insane on Titan. Touch of Thunder with storm grenades, as I mentioned, is going to have a wild ass ad clear, especially with something like Armamentarian. Juggernaut seems like it will practically make Titans impossible to be killed while running to different objectives, and Knockout has always been solid, so to see that back and better than ever is great. Before we end off the video, there are 4 fragments that we currently have info on. Spark of Beacons. This will allow Arc special weapons to create blinding explosions while empowered. So for Barents is now going to be an OP blinding waveframe GL. Spark of Resistance. When surrounded, the player has increased damage resistance because we need more of that right now. Spark of Momentum. Sliding over ammo will reload your current weapon and grant a small amount of melee energy. Heavy ammo increases the energy gained. To me, this sounds pretty niche, but great for Titans potentially, since they don't have instant reload options. And then finally, Spark of Shock, which just makes arc grenades jolt enemies. Overall, I think the Arc changes are some of the best we've gotten for a much needed subclass revamp. Arc just kind of sucks in the current state, so I think this will really balance it out. Nothing here sounds too wildly OP either, which is good. The damage resistance I'm sure will be crazy overtuned for a while, but overall I think the changes are solid. Let me know what your thoughts are of the changes so far, which class you're most excited to play, and what some builds you guys are going to have ready to go into day 1 are. Anyways, that's all for this video guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.